Well, after so many months of waiting, we finally get to learn who got Lucille, and the results are as brutal as ever. Hey guys, come over to the highly anticipated season premiere of The Walking Dead, Season 7, Episode 1. The day will come when you won't be, and holy shit, what an episode. I mean, going in this episode, this is probably the most hyped up premiere for The Walking Dead ever, mainly because of two things. One, Negan. I think everyone was looking forward, well, not looking forward, but everyone was definitely, I wouldn't say excited, but they definitely were interested in Negan coming onto the show. Negan is one of the most infamous characters in Walking Dead history, and I really was interested in seeing, exactly what he was going to do, if he was really going to shake things up, and what was really going to happen there. But of course, the way the finale ended, I mean, the finale ended with us not knowing who died, and finally we learned who died tonight, and I expected this to be brutal, but damn, this has to be one of the most brutal, depressing, and overall hardest episodes of The Walking Dead I've ever seen, really. This episode was extremely hard to watch. I really give them props, though, because I thought this was going to be really disappointing what ended up happening. In the end, it ended up being probably one of the most shocking, risky episodes the show has ever done. I mean, the person they killed off is crazy. Let's just get into that, because there's a lot to talk about in this episode. A lot went down, and already, I mean, Negan... The thing with Negan is that as much as you want to hate him, Jeffrey Dean Morgan's just so great as the actor, and I'm loving what he's doing as as the actor, but you fucking hate the character. But let's just get into this episode because there's a lot to talk about, and the show is about to change forever, but let's just get into it. So we start basically right in the midst of the chaos. Negan has just killed someone, and Rick is very shaken. He has blood splattered all across his face, and this is by far one of Andrew Lincoln's best episodes, because this is the episode where, so many people complain, oh, it's a Rick-tatorship, they're tired of it being a Rick-tatorship. I myself, I wouldn't say I'm necessarily tired of it, but yeah, it is kind of the same thing over and over again. We get it, Rick needs to be in charge, and now that Negan has arrived, Rick can no longer be in charge, and we get to see a much more human side of Rick that he hasn't really had in the past few seasons, because not much is real. Well, things have phased him, obviously, but this is really the first time that Rick has to face this alone, and I like seeing that. And he's staring down the ground. Negan asks, "What was the joke that bad?" Rick looks up at Negan and just says straight out, "I'm gonna kill you." And he mumbles it, but Negan bends down to Rick's level and he says, "What? I didn't quite catch that. You're gonna have to speak up." And Rick just says, "Not today, not tomorrow, but someday I'm going to kill you." And Negan smiles and then asks Simon, who is his right-hand man, what did he have? Did he have a knife? So Simon replies that he had a hatchet. Negan chuckles and tells Rick that Simon is his right-hand man. He's having one of those is important. What he doesn't have much left without them. A whole lot of work. Does he have one? Maybe one of these fine people still breathing, or did he? So I was thinking that Negan ended up killing Daryl. I mean, just the way this went, they really did a good job of keeping us in suspense, not knowing who he killed, and basically we don't really know what happened here. But at this point, I thought that it was Daryl who got killed. So he then waves the bloody bat in front of Rick's face. Then, after pausing for a second, he says to give him his axe, and Simon hands Negan the axe. Negan rises to his feet. After putting the axe in his belt, Negan grabs Rick by the collar, starts to pull him away, and that is the moment that the show changes forever, because you now know that Rick is no longer in charge. I mean, Rick is now Negan's property. Rick is forced to be Negan's slave throughout the rest of the show. Until Negan is gone, and, they get rid of him, Rick will be a slave, and it's going to be really hard to watch, but knowing that Rick is a slave, that's when you know shit really is going down. And I think they really just did a great job in the first scene of evoking fear, really giving us this very scary side of Negan. I mean, they really did a great job of just showing that Negan really is not messing around. We definitely do see that. So, we then see after this, Negan says that he'll be right back, and maybe Rick will be with him. If not, well, they can just turn those people inside out. So, Negan then I keep saying Nick, I don't know why. Negan drags Rick into the RV. He slams the door shut behind them, and basically Rick is then thrown into the trailer by Negan. He then slams Rick's hatchet into the table, and Negan says they're going to go for a ride. He tries to start his van and fails. Then he mocks Rick for claiming that he will kill him, and he challenges Rick to grab his axe and kill him, and as it's this really brutal scene. I mean, Negan is literally saying, just kill me, and obviously he's, he knows Rick isn't going to do it, but the way that he is mocking Rick and trying to show him that you're no match for me, and that you'll never be as strong as me, and I know you won't actually kill me, you don't have it in you. So Rick grabs the axe, Negan pops up, points a gun at Rick, he hits him in the stomach, puts the axe back on the table, he says, don't make him get up again. The sun starts to rise, and Negan tells Rick it's a brand new day. He challenges Rick to think about his decisions, how they affected the group, and what can still happen going forward. Because, yes, this is kind of Rick's fault. I mean, the second that whole hilltop incident happened, I knew that this wasn't going to be good. I mean, we know that Negan means business, and we're definitely seeing that here. So, Negan drives. Rick has flashbacks to his people in the kneeling position. This part kind of pissed me off, but I understood why they did this. I mean, Rick at this point is completely shaken, and he's hallucinating. He doesn't know. At this point, we don't really, it doesn't really matter to us. Obviously, it matters to us who died, but to Rick, it doesn't matter who died. It's just that one of his people is gone, and everyone really has changed. I mean, thinking about what Negan did, everyone has changed. Negan runs over some walkers, he stops the car, and seeing walkers helpless in this episode, that really shows how much the show has changed. The walkers are no longer the biggest threat. Negan is now the biggest threat, and that's something the show has been showing us since last season, that the walkers really aren't that big of a threat anymore because of people like Negan. But he sits next to Rick. Negan explains that Rick and his people belong to him now. He opens the door. A fog has consumed everything. There are a lot of walkers. Negan throws the hatchet into them, telling Rick to get his axe. Rick gets up, Negan throws him out to the car and closes the door, and in the fog, walkers come from every angle. Rick continues to see flashes of all his people in the lineup as the walkers attack, and again, just some really great psychological stuff. He's really messing with Rick's mind, and you really do feel for Rick in this situation. And that's something I really do want to give this episode. I know a lot of people in seasons past, they've become very annoyed or just really tired of Rick because he's always in charge, but seeing him not in charge, I think that made him a lot more vulnerable. We haven't really seen Rick this vulnerable in a while, but seeing him so helpless and being forced to do things was really hard to watch, and you really do fear for him because of this. I mean, he's no longer the one in charge. You have to just imagine how that feels. For you to be in charge for so long, then suddenly be dethroned and not having any say with it is crazy to think about. And he's fighting them off one by one. He makes his way back to the van. He climbs on top of the vehicle, kicks off walkers on his way up, and after another flashback, Rick makes it to the top. He stands to look around, and he sees the burning wood, and then blocked his path last season. He continues to look. He sees the walker that was hanging above it. The walker reaches for Rick. Rick collapses under the weight of what has happened, and finally, Negan calls out from the van, asking Rick if he imagined a future with his people. He then tells him that that isn't how it works anymore, and that there is no future, that, he's his now. Negan tells Rick to think about what happened. We fade out, and we finally get to see exactly what happened. And the way this was done was so well done. Rick lays on the roof of a van. We hear walkers all around, and he then reminisces, and we finally get to see who was killed. And I like they didn't keep us waiting for that long. I thought it was going to be till the end of the episode, but no, it's about like 15 minutes into the episode. He flashes back to Negan saying he can't decide who to kill, and we see the Eeny Mighty Mo game replaced from Rick's perspective. He looks around, Negan points at his friends, and they're all so terrified. We get that really terrified look over their face, which I actually did like that scene. I know a lot of people thought it was annoying the way it was done, but I thought they did a good job with just building up the tension and evoking fear, and each member of the group is pointing at with the bat as Negan walks around. Negan says, "You are it," and he points to Abraham. Abraham puts his hands up. Sasha cries, as does Rosita. He smashes Abraham's hands in, and Abraham is dead. So I was shocked that it was Abraham, but at the same time, like, Abraham, that's who you kill out of everyone? Like, I was a little bit shocked that they picked Abraham. Yes, Abraham has been a character that has grown, not exactly irrelevant, but it seems like a character last season, they didn't really know what to do with him. They kind of just gave him the whole Sasha thing because they need to do something with him. But that really does get rid of a huge character. I can't believe they actually did kill him off, but I think they used him to the best of their ability. So Abraham's now gone, but that's not the only thing going on. Abraham tells Negan to suck his nuts. Negan continues to be his head in as the others cry, and Negan laughs, mocking Abraham, continues to beat his skull. Everyone cries. He continues until there is no head left, and just seeing no head, I mean, just seeing how relentless he is, and how even when they're dead, he just keeps beating them, it's crazy. I mean, Negan is the definition of a sadist. We definitely do see that. So Negan splashes blood from Lucille on Rick's face, saying, "Look at the dirty girl." Of course, he's talking about Rosita. He puts the bloody bat in Rosita's face, asks the two are together. He casually says that it sucks, and Negan exclaims that Abraham took one for the team. Daryl gets up, punches Negan in the face, and that's not even the half of it. Now, the second we saw Daryl punch Negan, I'm like, oh shit, Daryl is going to be a goner. I really thought that they were going to kill Daryl in this scene. It makes sense. I mean, Norman Reedus is very busy with movie career, and I know that people would get very upset. People would stop watching the show, but recently, Daryl hasn't been that much of a big part of the series. I mean, yeah, he's done stuff, but he's not the badass that I think everyone says he used to be. You know, in seasons past, oh yeah, I would have definitely said, oh, Daryl is definitely one of the best characters, but we now have much more interesting characters. I don't think Daryl is one of the best anymore. So if they were to kill Daryl, I wouldn't be as upset. What they do instead is truly heartbreaking. Men grab Daryl, hold him back down. Negan says this is a no-no, not one bit of that shit flies there, and Dwight points the crossbow at Daryl, says that he will kill him, but Negan says not to kill him, and Daryl's dragged back away, mainly because they can use him. He'll be useful to them. They know what Daryl can do. They see how tough he is. Clearly, Negan can use him, and Negan says he's a man of his word, saying he needs the group to know him, so he's going to kill another. He's not just going to kill one person, and honestly, I was happy about this, and I'm not happy. I'm not happy who died, obviously. I'm happy in the sense that they didn't just make us wait an entire, season for one death. No, there are going to be two deaths, and it just shows how they're not playing around. He turns around, he hits, we see that Negan says he's a man of his word, and he turns around, hits Glenn with the bat. Glenn is muttering, Negan gets in his face. Glenn's eye is falling out. He addresses Maggie as he's falling apart, and he says, to Maggie, I'm here for you, things like that. Like, he's trying to hold, he's trying to get it together, and Negan tells the group he knows it's hard, and that he's truly sorry. He did, however, say no exceptions. He then tees on Glenn again. He beats his head until his nothing is left, and Glenn is dead, and it's for real this time, guys. This wasn't fake. Glenn is actually dead. I can't believe the show actually did it, but it made sense. I mean, there was so much foreshadowing last season that Glenn's gonna die. Glenn, I had this feeling that Glenn was gonna die, so I'm not really that surprised that they killed Glenn off, but at the same time, I can't believe they actually did kill someone off like Glenn. I thought it was gonna be an Abraham, but no, Glenn is dead. Very sad to see, and it really does change Maggie's character. This death really does get to show Laura Cohen's acting abilities. Maggie sobbing, the rest of the group is seen crying, and just seeing that he's killed these two people, it really does show how relentless of a person Negan is. Negan tells the group he's just getting started, and that Lucille is thirsty, she's a vampire bat, and that these are only two of the people he's going to kill. The others are still out there, they're still available, he can still kill them. None of the group can take much more, all are crying heavily. Rick has a very blank stare in his face, mainly because he's lost. He doesn't really know what else to do. He's kind of in shock, and I kind of saw it as Rick doesn't really believe this is all happening. He can't really process it all. I mean, if you saw two people who are two of your closest allies just die in front of you, it would be really hard to survive. We know that Rick, not a lot phases him, but the way that Rick handles grief in this episode, the way most of the characters handle grief, I think was very realistically portrayed, and that's something that the show did really well here. So then we see Rick is back on top of the van. Negan screams for him to get the axe. The axe lays next to him. Rick pops up as Negan screams for his axe. He starts shooting bullets up through the trailer as Rick jumps over to the hanging walker. He slips, has to kick those away, reaching from the ground. He struggles. Negan starts killing the walkers. He tells Rick the clock is ticking and to think about what can still happen. Rick crawls away. We see a vision of Sasha getting killed by Lucille, and I think he's just imagining of how much more can happen. Knowing that Glenn and Abraham were killed, so many other people can get killed. He fights. He sees each member of his group with the bat. This includes Maggie, Michonne, Carl. He reaches the trailer door. Negan opens it up, helps him in. Rick and Negan stand face to face. Negan holds out his hand. Rick hands him the axe and sits down. Negan says, "Attaboy," because he finally gave it to him, and Rick stares at Negan. They drive away. The van's going down the road. And inside, Negan stops the van, says that they're there. He calls out Rick for being the top dog for so long and asks him how it feels to lose his friends in front of his son, just like that. Again, just really hard to watch, knowing that Rick is being dethroned and that he's not in this position anymore. He runs through, as he rummages through the cabinets, Negan pulls out peroxide. He toys with Rick. He tells him he was addicted to being in charge, and I don't think he's wrong. I think Rick really was kind of power hungry in that sense. And he points the hatchet at Rick. He tells him he can still be useful if used the right way. Negan tells Rick to take the hatchets, and Rick then falls out of the van. Negan drags him back to his people. He says there they are. He asks Rick if he knows what the trip was about. Rick ignores him, and Negan says to speak when spoken to, and Negan says it was about how he looked at him like the shit in his scrambled eggs, and that it isn't going to work with him. He asks Rick if he should get another chance. Rick says yes, but obviously very reluctant. I mean, Rick at this point doesn't know what to say. I mean, think of Negan in general. What would you know what can you say in front of me? What really flies with Negan? And Negan says what Rick does next determines whether or not everyone dies. He tells his men to put guns to the back of everyone's head. He says level with their noses so it will be a real mess if they have to fire. He tells Carl to get up, come over to his father right now. He takes his belt off, wraps it tight around Carl's arm, saying it's supposed to hurt. He then tells Carl to get on the ground next to Rick, spread his arms out, and Carl says it didn't hurt, and then the second he did, I'm like, oh shit, I know what he's gonna do, because, of course, in the comics, we know that Carl ends up getting his arm cut off. Now, I haven't read the comics, I think everyone knows that happens, though, that's one of the key things that happens. Glenn dies, and Carl gets his arm chopped off. Those the two significant things that happen. So Negan asks Simon if he has a pen. Simon tosses him one. Negan takes the cap off, marks the line on Carl's arm. Nick tries to plead with Negan, saying, please don't. Negan says he won't do anything and tells Rick to cut off. And I love seeing Rick so helpless, just the please don't so silently, just realizing that Rick isn't in charge anymore. So he tells Rick to cut off Carl's arm at that line. He says he will need to do it or he will kill everyone, including Carl. And before he kills him as well, Michonne says they understand. Negan agrees, but that he isn't sure that Rick understands. He says they have a great doctor and the kid will be fine. Negan then kneels down and says it has to happen or he can just crush Carl's skull, and Rick says it should be him instead, but Negan says that isn't an option. Negan tells Rick he needs to make a decision. Rick screams, but Negan starts counting down from 3. And again, just so much tension going on here. Nick gets right in Rick's face, makes him scream, telling him this is it. Carl tells Rick to just do it. Rick screams. Negan takes his arm, stops him. He tells Rick that he answers to him, provides for him, and belongs to him. Negan has finally broken Rick, we definitely see, and he says that this is the look he had wanted to see. He takes the hatchet, addresses the group, and again, this is Rick realizing he's no longer in control. Very sad to see, but Negan says they all did, and that was a very productive day, and even though he didn't cut off Carl's arm, that was just to see how far he can take Rick, and again, just to see the evoking fear in everyone. I think that really does go with the rest of the episode, but that's all we see of Negan for this episode. So Negan hopes that everyone gets it now, that they understand how things work. He says things have changed, whatever they had going for them. This is over now. Negan points at Daryl, asks Dwight to load him up. Dwight drags Daryl, throws him in a van. Negan says Daryl has guts, not like Rick. And again, I think Daryl's going to be of use to them. We don't really know how, but Negan says that Daryl belongs to him now. And if Rick comes after them, he will cut pieces off of Daryl or have Rick do it for him. Just thinking of that is so terrible. And Negan leaves the truck, says it's a new beginning. He'll be back for his first pickup in 1 week and says ta-ta. So I thought that was I think that was a perfect introduction to Negan. Spending most of this episode with him just showed how far Negan's willing to go, shows that he's not messing around, and again, really just show how powerful Negan really is and how much we should fear him, and I think they did a really good job with that. So all of Negan's people then walk away, leaving all the group in shock. They all have been crying, some still are. Rick's bent over, complete disbelief. I mean, he did cry in part of the episode. Sasha has her face covered, thinking about Abraham. Rick is, there's so much stuff going on. Think of all the losses they had. Sasha's lost Abraham, Glenn's lost Maggie, Maggie's lost Glenn. These are really tough losses, and they're really hard to think about, knowing that these characters are gone. But Rick is seen with Glenn's body in the background. Only the group remains. Everyone is silent. Maggie stands up. Rick tries to plead with her to sit. Maggie says no, that they all need to get ready to fight Negan. No one reacts. Rick says they have Daryl in an army and that they will die. And I like that Rick's saying, look, we can't fight him. This is very rare for Rick. Most times Rick's like, all right, let's fight him. But Rick is actually saying, no, we can't fight him. They're just too powerful for us. And Maggie says, go home, take everyone with him. She can do it herself. And she's literally ready to take him on by herself. Rick tells her that they are still there for her. She starts to lose it. She pleads for them to all leave so they don't die. We know that Maggie still has a baby, so Michonne tells Maggie they aren't letting her go, so does Rick. Sasha walks over to Maggie, says she will take Maggie and will keep her safe. Maggie says she's taking Glenn with her, kneels down. Sasha addresses Rosita over Abraham's body. The two agree to avenge him and that they're going to go after him. So Maggie is trying to get Glenn's body. The group begs her to let them help. Rick says that he's their family too, and Eugene helps the girls pick up Abraham. Rick and Carl pick up Glenn. Negan's voice can be heard telling Rick they will never eat together and be happy. We see in a vision everyone, including Abraham, Glenn, and Maggie's baby, sit. They eat a peaceful picnic table, and this is essentially what Rick wanted. He wanted this, united community, and he can't really have that now. It's now broken by Negan. He wanted this to be a united front. He wanted it to be a safe haven, but the Alexandria safe zone is no longer a safe zone. It's not going to happen anymore. There is no safe zone for them. Wherever they go, Negan will be in charge, and Rick gets into the van. He starts it up. There's a walker on the road. The walker literally gets away from Rick because it looks at the blood, and again, it just shows that the walker's not really a threat anymore. He drives off, and that is the way this very highly intense and highly eventful episode ends. Just crazy stuff overall. The show has forever changed. Let's just get into this episode because there is so much to talk about with what's going to happen this season. So, what a premiere. I mean, really, they really did a great job with pulling the rug out and really just letting all this shit happen. I still can't believe that Abraham's dead. I can't believe that Glenn's dead. It was so sudden, but it makes sense. I mean, it shouldn't be these slow deaths that we should have. I don't like it when The Walking Dead tries to play it safe, and I like that they didn't play it safe here. They killed two really big characters who are, in fact, main characters, and I really am happy that they did that. They haven't killed a main character in a long time. I think the last one they killed was Herschel, if I'm not mistaken, but it's crazy that they actually Beth was the last one they killed, but even that wasn't that big of a deal. Either way, though, this was a insane episode. Just what a way to start off. I mean, especially since this is the premiere. Who knows what's going to happen in the rest of the season? No one is safe now. Anyone can die, and I honestly feel that they might just kill someone off in every episode. I was really saying to myself, is Negan just going to kill someone every episode? I honestly could see them doing that. The cast is so huge, and we're already down 2, that I really could see them doing that. People complain the cast is so huge, so why not just trim the cast entirely? I could really see them doing that here. And especially with us getting 4 new characters, I could definitely see him doing that. But let's talk about Rick. Like I said, this is by far one of Andrew Lincoln's best episodes. Just seeing how outnumbered Rick was, the fear in him, realizing he's not in charge. I mean, it's obviously a very scary thought. You know, Rick's always been the one in charge, but he doesn't have a right-hand man anymore. He doesn't really have a team anymore. What was his team is now Negan's team. He's now part of Negan's team. He's no longer on his own side. Just really sad to see. I really did feel bad for Rick in that regard. But let's talk about what's going to happen with the rest of the group. I mean, Maggie, Sasha, Maggie, Sasha, and Rosita, they want to avenge their significant others' deaths, and I'm looking forward to seeing the way that's going to go. I feel like they're going to try to rally a troop, but Rick seems like he's going to be the one to stop them. We even hear in the promo, Rick says, I told you already I'm not in charge anymore. So Rick seems like he's not really making decisions because it's not his decision to make. He's realized that he's been dethroned, and there's absolutely nothing he can do about it. It's very sad to see. We're so used to seeing Rick be the one in charge of everything, but seeing him completely outnumbered, it's going to be really hard to watch this entire season, but it makes sense, obviously, why they had to do that. I mean, there's only so far you can go with that. I understand why they had to do that with Rick. It was very sad to see, obviously, but I understand why they did that. As far as Daryl, I don't know what they're really going to do with Daryl. We know that Daryl is with Negan. I think he's going to be of use to them somehow. What they're going to do with him, I don't really know. We'll have to see. Ezekiel, we didn't meet in this episode yet. He's going to come into play somehow. We know that he probably is going to be the one to take down Negan. I'm really worried about Carol and Morgan, because we know that Carol and Morgan and Tara and, not Aaron, but Tara and I believe Spencer, they're on the supply run right now. So I don't really know what's going to happen with them. They're on that supply run, and then Carol and Morgan are back at the house. I don't know what happens to them. They have no idea what's going on with the rest of the group, and I feel like we're definitely going to see what's going on with them. Negan doesn't know about them, but he's probably going to soon, so we'll have to see what happens with that. How far Negan is willing to go, I think, is definitely going to play a big part in this series. Jeffrey Dean Morgan did such a great job as this character, even though he's so intimidating and it's just probably one of the worst menacing characters we have ever had. He's so great as this character. He has such charisma. He has this really dry wit to him, and overall, I think he's just a fantastic character. I can't wait to see where he's going to go. But overall, guys, let me know what you guys thought of this insane episode. What do you think of the deaths? What do you think of was it worth the wait? That's my big question. Was it worth the wait? Do you guys? I definitely didn't expect them to kill off 2 people. I expected 1 person. I'm actually kind of happy they killed off 2 because it was more unexpected that way, and I like the way they did that. But again, it showed how ballsy the show really is getting. They're not playing around. They are going to do something big, and I'm definitely looking forward to seeing what else they're going to do this season. I'm kind of scared too. I mean, especially with cutting out Carl's eye and whatnot. I mean, we don't know how far, well, not cutting out Carl's eye, but cutting off his arm. I mean, we don't know how far Negan's willing to go, and that's really what the whole scary thing is about. He doesn't seem like he has any limits whatsoever, and it seems like all of them are just property to him. They're slaves, and one goes, whatever. He doesn't really care. But that's my review. Hope you guys guys enjoyed. Let me know what you guys thought of this episode. Loved your thoughts on it. Where do you think the season's going to go? And we'll see you guys in my next Switch of B for tonight's episode of Westworld, and we'll see you guys for that. Okay, bye.